call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order, March 3rd, 2022. We're making up our February 24th meeting today. Mr. Trini Jones, would you give our invocation, please, and would everyone stand for the invocation?
In all things, Father, you say give thanks. So for this opportunity to come together and to guide the direction of our city, we say thank you. We ask you to give us clarity of mind and thought that we may do what is best for this city as it grows and expands. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, at this time, if we have any visitors with us that would like to make any remarks that are not pertaining to anything on our agenda tonight, you can come to the microphone and speak. Okay, doesn't look like we have anyone. Do I hear a motion, or do we need to discuss the adoption of minutes from our last meeting? Any questions? Or
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
okay. A motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Okay, and that carries. Our next item, action item, is a construction plat, CP 22-01. We're going to discuss and consider this construction plat for Beyer Addition, Lot 1, R1, 2R, and 3, Block 1, being a replat of lots 1R and 2, being 2.425 acres out of the John C. Hale Survey, abstract number 202, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, also known as 1280 Farm Road 148. Mr. Fenner?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Good to see you this evening. Before you, you do have the Beyer Addition that's familiar with it. It's the old Shell station there between, or just right by the Chick-fil-A. And if you've been out there, you've seen some demolition occurring. We've met with the applicant several times through engineers and the planners for this property, and have looked at some layouts and so forth. What's before you today is the construction plat, and you know, as what we do with the construction plat is that's the initial submittal after we go through the development review process, and that submittal has the engineering and the technical specs that's actually submitted to us during this time, and that's what we're most concerned with at this level. We will be dealing with, just because you see something laid out on this plat itself, doesn't mean that everything's going to be in just exactly right. We don't see any drive-throughs or anything else like that at this time, but when you do this, you have to site plan it appropriately, and we know some traffic situations have occurred, and they will always occur when we're doing lots like this and we're doing shared access and doing drive-throughs. We don't know what all is going to be there, but that'll be through another planning process as we go forward. There'll be 2 driveways that are granted from TxDOT there, and then the drainage and the other back part of the access will be back in the back. So from this point, we do recommend approval of the construction plat into the 3 lots, and from after the next steps after this will be the completion of the public improvements, and the city engineer will then approve those and have a letter to support that, and then final plat will be submitted and approved, and we may do this in phases of, like, as they sell the property off for a transfer of ownership and the public improvement construction. So that's where we're at. And of course, as you know, at the very end, if one person buys all 3 lots and they want to just sell them off prior to the public improvements, then there's surety bonds and things that we have to deal with at that point if we get to that level and they want a final plat submitted and so forth. So tonight you are approving the construction plat, and we do recommend that you do approve it. Any questions for me?
Okay, no questions for Mr. Finner. Do I hear a motion to approve this construction plat?
I move we approve item 5.1 as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion carries. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign? Okay, and that carries. Okay. The next item on our agenda is CP 22-02. We're going to discuss and consider another construction plat for Terrell Senior Living Phase 3, Lot 1, Block 1, being 11.7972 acres out of the J.C. Hale Survey, abstract number 202, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas. It's located at the southeast corner of Windsor Avenue and Rockwall Avenue. Mr. Finner?
All right, Madam Chair, Commissioners, this before you tonight is the senior terraces, the Phase 3 essentially that you did approve a plan development for a couple of years ago. The PD ordinance 2849 that was for, there you see, and that's a good map right there. Basically, you have senior terraces over on the other side, and this is essentially, like I said, the third phase of this property. So noted on this map, the property in red is the site, it's the parcel for the senior terraces. Just to the west of the property is in a PD known as the Woodlands, and you've approved a couple phases in that, and they've built infrastructure, and they've actually got some foundations on the ground. Several permits are out in that development. And then to the northwest of Rockwall and Windsor up there, you have the Rose Hill Estates, which has not started development, but we've had several people looking at that property to purchase. We're working with somebody right now to possibly extend the developer's agreement term for an update on that plan development, which would be quality standard updates. And we've been working with several people, but this particular one we've worked probably, I think our email thread is about 28 on some of the stuff on the developer's agreement. So that could be developed. I'm not sure what that noise is, but all that said, if you look at, so you know where Windsor Road is, that goes to the east, okay, right there. That Windsor Road at Rockwall has been extended for the Woodlands project, and that was a requirement through the plan development and the developer's agreement that we had for them, that they would build the southern portion of that property or the northern portion, depending on where we were at. The Rose Hill PD will build the northern portion to finish out all the way to Rose Hill, so that'll have a full connection. There is a little chunk right there where the cursor is. It's a 9-acre tract that was incorporated into the plan development. Months after the initial one was approved, it was set up and it was designed to just really be dealt with from a site plan process. That site plan process had a site plan that would allow for a townhome development out there, and basically had no developers. That was the only portion of all those agreements that didn't have a developer's agreement attached to it. Therefore, making that little piece, when developed, build their share of the 60-foot right-of-way of Windsor. We are working with somebody right now, and you'll soon see, real soon, a layout for another senior living product over there, and we're talking about gated right now at this point, but we've had a couple of layouts and we've had several meetings with them, and we'll see where that goes. On that, that's all to say. Now during all this development, we'll have this full east to west connection from Windsor, Rose Hill to Windsor. And then we do have several properties being looked at on Rose Hill on the left side. And then, of course, the preserve that was approved by the P and Z and the council was the southern portion of Rose Hill, southwest portion of Rose Hill, which would will actually connect from 148 on Windsor Road. And so that portion of Windsor Road will be built about 3/4 of the way through when that development starts. And they're actually working pretty quick and hard and heavy on that right now. So there'll be a small portion of Windsor that will have to be built later on, and we'll have to see where that goes. In the end, 148 to FM 2578 will be connected by Windsor. And as far as our woodlands planning process and our preserve over on the other side, we'll have a trail all the way from Rose Hill to Rockwall. Now, the big thing on this plat will be the Rockwall extension. The Rockwall, as you know, is built right there to Windsor, the connection. So what'll happen here is this plat, in this development, will be dedicating their half, their portion of the Rockwall extension. The Woodlands have already dedicated their half, and they're in the process of planning. The Terraces will be responsible for building their half of the Rockwall Road down south, and we hope that maybe there's some more communication between the Woodlands developers and the Terraces to just allow it to be all built at the same time. And so that's just gonna have to be something that they get together on and we get together on to negotiate, but that will in time be the deal. So just wanted to give you, always want to try to refresh your memory of all the stuff going over there and how much infrastructure is being built. In fact, there's a sewer line that's having to connect, is coming over from the west side of the Woodlands on Rose Hill to the Terraces, and so there had to be an off-site easement worked out with the Woodlands for the senior Terraces. With all that said, again, just like before, on the construction plat, we complete the public improvements within the area. The main thing is you see the big U shape around there, since this is gonna be somewhat set up like a kind of a quadplex, duplex type style of development for these seniors. There's just gonna be a U-shaped fire lane, and that's what's gonna be platted all within that U shape there on the property as they build. So that'll be their main part of the public improvements, along with fire hydrants and along with the extension of the Rockwall South. Once that's all done, they'll be approved and then final platted. However, in this case, a lot of times these senior living products or apartment types will go through the HUD financing, and so there's a requirement for a building permit first. And so in order to get a building permit, we have to make sure the infrastructure is accounted for, and so that will be accounted for through a letter of credit or surety bond if they're not approved prior to the building permit. So all that said, and all your little tiny history lesson there, we do recommend approval of the construction plat and to move forward into the design and the build and the next steps for the Terrell Senior Living Phase 3.
Okay, do we have any questions for Mr. Fitter?
When this was brought before us previously, were there some variances that were, or some of the requirements we were gonna, about the density or something like that?
So I'm trying to give you a little history lesson, and then I'm missing things. So what you approved was a plan development, okay? So the plan development had some underlying zoning of some of the different MF district standards, just simply because it was the closest to that with some of those things. But what we did was we created in that PD, in that development standard, a density of up to 12 units per acre, because the way they would be laid out, it's being a senior living. And so that is actually in the plan development. So the construction plat has to follow anything within the PD, or if there is a developer's agreement. In this case, there was no developer's agreement. The construction plat would have to conform to the plan development and construction standards, say if there were additional easements needed, or road, or any kind of infrastructure that needed to be created, or anything that was called out as certain setbacks and so forth that you would see at this process, at this level. In this case, most of the development standards are gonna be tied to the building permit. So construction plat goes through because that's tied to the actual civils, building those improvements and how they're gonna be built accordingly. And then when they actually come through with the final plat, it'll all be on basically one lot that you'll have here. And then that average density that was set forth and should be in your PD, that would be, yes, maximum density is 12 units per acre. So that, we had things in there, the dead-end parking is necessary, then it shall be designed that there's no more than 10 parking spaces. These things are just part of the plan development overlay on top of that property. We had a minimum floor area of 700 square foot when we did this plan development a couple of years ago. The landscaping, we did do additional perimeter landscaping, and there has been a plan submitted to staff. They'll be doing some additional, they'll be doing not just the buffer along the arterials like we require with trees planted every certain distance, but we actually gave them the opportunity to create a perimeter, create a landscape plan for the perimeter screening, rather than building, say, like in our multifamily standards, we'll tell you that you have to build a 6-foot masonry wall around the development. In this case, it's not necessarily really multifamily. It just has some of those standards. And so what we did to work with them on the PD to get that specific use, that specific standard, was to allow for a mixture of wrought iron fences or split rail or a combination of stone column, brick with clusters and with certain, and berms and certain things. And a lot of times we do those things on perimeters anyhow because of the land. If there's drainage, like for instance on the Woodlands, I don't know if you recall, but right when you get on Rose Hill and right before you make that entrance, we had them do a lot of drainage work, which is right there at the front part because we're carrying water all the way down Rose Hill. And so we have to work with the buffering of the Woodlands because of how that drainage is coming down. And so we can cluster some of the stuff in areas, meaning we could put berms in corners, we could put them midway berms, midway clusters, and things like that. In this case, that's the route we're going to. So the whole perimeter will have some type of screening, and most of it's going to be the decorative landscaping clusters and mixture of berms and mixture of a little bit of everything.
Any more questions?
And those are all part of the improvements, by the way, too. So you don't, just like when we did the apartments, they had certain portions because when we did the PD and the SUP for the first apartments behind Ross and Fim Alley, we had buildings separate that we couldn't allow them to go vertical. There was, because of the building permit process, but we needed to allow them to build their slabs because of the concrete work, doing the fire lane and stuff like that. And in those, there was also landscaping per building. And so I worked out a deal with them to look at what buildings they were gonna be building and what buildings were gonna get the final CO, final inspections. And then they permitted, or they bonded for the rest of the buildings to make sure they had the fire lane in, but to make sure that all landscaping was done, all perimeter stuff was done too. So when we get to that point, we'll have to make some decisions on where we go.
Any more discussion or questions? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve Construction Plat 22-02?
I'll make a motion to approve construction plat for Terrell Senior Living Phase 3, Lot 1, Block 1, being 11.7972 acres out of the J.C. Hale Survey, abstract number 202, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
Aye.
And that carries.
Yes,
Okay. Next item on our agenda is FP 22-04. We're going to discuss and consider a final plat of the West Everett Addition lots 1 and 2, Block 1, being 4.84 acres out of the Thomas A. Waldrop Survey, abstract number 597, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, also known as 5878 US Highway 80. Mr. Finner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is just really just the applicant going through a process of kind of cleaning up. There's a cluster of buildings out in this area, and there's no development that's occurring at this point for the creation of this. What it is there's not been a plat here, so we just went through the final plat process. It's a highway corridor zoning, but it's existing, and we've done this before too, as long as we don't set up any variances that would cause any problems for the existing property that would limit them on any kind of create a financial strain or anything like that, because they'll have a separate surveyed property. And so basically, if you look at it, all that's happening is really the buildings are being surveyed out to where they're on separate lots. And that's it. There is, we did get out of this, we needed to have an easement. Well, it was with what's going on down along that area, we did have to get a water line easement onto the property from the plat. And so we did get that, and that was through engineering, so as long as we got that, we were okay with that. But again, there's nothing that, if we were going through a building process of any kind, then we would be looking at this in a different way. So you'd be looking at going through the construction plat, making sure there's enough buildable room for them before they go off and we set them up for failure. We would basically have to go through that process and say, hey, they want to build another building. Then what that would mean is we have to deal with the conformance of the issue, because there's non-conforming structures and things like that. And so at that point, that's when we would be dealing with a full construction plat. They submit engineering plans, civils, show what they're going to be doing, how it's going to be the whole property in general is going to be affected, and so forth. So that's why something like this that you could think may seem that it needs to be a little more difficult is really not. It's just clean it up, and I'm sure it's probably for financial purposes for somebody to either sell off a cluster or to refinance.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Mr. Finner on this?
Yes, so I'm seeing the map here. Are the buildings, does one of these ones go between the buildings or through the buildings? I'm sorry?
Yeah,
You see on the right?
show on
On Everett Drive? Is that Everett Drive?
That's Everett Drive's over on the other side.
Right here.
Okay.
That's how it is right now. Probably should have been showing you that overlay on top of the, so it's just cleaning up. There'll be 3 buildings or whatever on one, and then 6 on the other lot. So it's not, 'cause right now you've got, this is the current configuration where the property lines cross over through the road and through the buildings.
Thank you.
I hear a motion for the approval of the final plat? 22-04? Am I on the right one?
Make a motion that we approve final plat, FP 22-04, which is West Everett Addition, lots 1 and 2, block 1.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, and that carries. Okay, the next item on our agenda is FP 22-05. We're going to discuss and consider a final plat for the, how do we pronounce that, Mr. Finner? N-E-R-I.
Neri?
Neri, okay. Neri Addition, lots 1 and 2, being 2.53 acres out of the A. Bennett Survey, abstract number 20, City of Terrell, ETJ, Kaufman County, Texas, also known as 22982 Farm to Market Road, 429. Mr. Finner?
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. This property here is in the ETJ, so there's no control of zoning or use of the property. And you'll look on the map right now and you'll see the subject property of what it looks like now. And what they want to do is this, which is basically turn it into 2 lots. It's 2.5 acres now, and they will be taking it to Lot 1, that's going to be about 1.2 acres, and then Lot 2, that'll be about 1.26 acres for about an even split. And then it will dedicate a 10-foot access easement for future roadway on the 429. As you recall, that's what we get in our ETJ or access easements instead of the real right-of-way. But that's what it'll be used at a later time when they come through there, and if they do need to widen. So again, being that the property is in the ETJ, we don't control anything. We just deal with the platting process, and in this case, these are over 1 acre lots, and so there's no real problem. They should be able to meet. As y'all know, our department's taken on the 150th division of things in the city, and one of them's doing septic tanks and inspections. And if they're in the city, they can actually do 3/4 acre lots within the city. That's under our ordinance, and for us to inspect septics. If they're in the county, they have to be 1 acre lots to be inspected. So with all that said, everything is up to them on this as far as dealing with TxDOT on the 429 with driveways and so forth. So in the event that anything's required, they'll have to work through them if they have to have a joint access easement between the 2 lines. It's not uncommon, depending on the speed limit and so forth. But this is not a big development that we have to worry about a lot of different properties being accessed.
Okay, anyone have questions for Mr. Finner on this one? Okay, do I hear a motion of approval for final plat 22-05?
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat for the Neri Addition, Lot 1 and 2 being 2.53 acres out of the A. Bennett Survey, abstract number 20, City of Terrell, ETJ, Kaufman County, Texas.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, and that carries. Our next item is going to be a public hearing. Conduct a public hearing to discuss and consider a final replat for Tanger Addition, Lot 1A and 1B, Block A, being 35.74 acres out of the Ransom Souls Survey, abstract number 443, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas. Mr. Finner, do you want to tell us?
All right, Madam Chair. Commissioners, so Myra, would you go to the existing
going to take this time to recuse myself from this vote.
Do we still maintain a quorum from this?
Get out of here or what? You gonna? That's fine.
Do we still have enough members with him? Okay.
With the recusal, I make a motion that this item be tabled until our next meeting and a quorum is met.
Sure. We'll bring it back anyway. I'm just trying to think about the public hearing. The reason we're doing a public hearing is on replats. You don't do any of the notifications. You don't do anything other than say it's a public hearing. And
People can,
right, you can just open it up to speak, but it has nothing to do with increased density or residential. And all residential, when you increase the density and stuff, you require public hearings. So we'll be bringing it back anyhow, so I don't believe you really need to, you need to open up the public hearing because we don't have a quorum to vote on it anyhow, so we're just gonna have to. Okay, all right, well then we'll, you know what? I know y'all love to meet just to meet. If we do have to have a special meeting, because I have two projects right now that may need some different time, maybe,
okay. All right, I think that covers all of our agenda, and our meeting is adjourned.